Your body is not your own. The moment you are born onto Persian soil, your father can force you to marry your sibling, and no god can save you. But the scene you encounter when you step into the depths of the palaces and fire temples is much darker. Here, purity is glorified, yet incest is praised. Women are displayed in temples, their bodies offered to strangers. Young boys are castrated and mutilated, bound to protect the king for life. And you are not a distant observer. You are right in the middle of it. A girl, forced to marry her brother. A captive, dragged into the harem under the cold gaze of eunuchs. A boy, pushed under the knife so that he might never know a woman. This is ancient Persia, where pleasure is part of politics and sin is a sacred duty. Before we step into these dark and forgotten stories, if you love discovering the secrets hidden in the shadows of history, liking and subscribing to this video makes it possible for us to delve into the cold and chilling depths of the past together. By sharing where you're listening from in the comments, we can connect on this journey that transcends time and space. Imagine, you are a young Persian girl from a noble family. Your body is not yours. It never was. From the moment you were born, the priests whispered your duty. Your parents approved. This duty belonged not to a distant stranger or a chosen suitor from another family, but to your own blood. Your father tells you plainly, you will marry your brother. This is not a scandal, nor a secret whispered in shame. It is celebrated. Because in the Zoroastrian faith, incest was not considered defilement, but sacred. There was a word for it, quadada, marriage with one's own blood. For you, this means entering the marriage bed with a man who shared your cradle, offering yourself to your father if the priest desired it, and carrying a child of your own blood. The fire priest saw this as the greatest good deed. Why? Because it strengthened creation, kept the bloodline pure, cleansed it of foreigners. And for the royal family, it guaranteed one thing. Power remained locked within the same house. Imagine the wedding. No gasp, no raised eyebrows. The court gathers. Halls are adorned with flowers. Musicians play. And when your brother takes your hand, the crowd cheers. To them, this is the highest devotion offered to the gods. But outside of Persian lands, the whispers are poisonous. Greek travelers recoil. Herodotus calls it barbaric. Strabo and Plutarch write with disgust. For the Greeks, this is proof of Persian corruption, a sign of a society rotting behind its golden palaces. But for the Persians, this was not corruption, but perfection. The kings themselves practiced it. The Achaemenid dynasty, the great rulers who reigned over an empire from India to Greece, kept incest at the heart of their throne. Cambyses too, son of Cyrus the Great, was rumored to have married his sister. Darius, Xerxes, all were associated with incest. For them, sleeping with their own blood was not a taboo, but a royal right. You can picture it. A king lies in his chamber, calling for his sister, no longer a sister, but a wife. The same blood flows in their veins, and now it mixes in the bed. Priests justify this with sacred texts. In the Vendidad, Kaydada is praised above every action. It is said that when a man marries his mother, sister, or daughter, he secures salvation for his soul. This union, they taught, mimicked the divine order. But the reality, cold and physical, is not sacred. Flesh against flesh. A girl without a choice. A father lifting his daughter's veil on her wedding night. Silence, the rustle of silks. The girl's breath caught in her throat. Your body rebels. This is wrong. And there is no escape. Because in Persia, to reject Kaydada was to oppose not just your family, but God. The ritual of incest endured for centuries. Priests wrote, kings practiced, nobles defended it. For them, it was purity. To outsiders, it was sickness. For women, it was a prison without escape. Imagine being pregnant. The child inside you is not only your son or daughter. He is also your nephew, cousin, brother. Titles blurred, a complicated, twisted cycle. To the Persians, this child was blessed. In your eyes, he is the living proof of chains impossible to break. Herodotus says that when the Persians discussed policy, they did it twice, once drunk, once sober. Perhaps this is fitting, because the doctrine of incest was exactly that, a drunk logic presented as a divine truth. It promises power, but rots the soul. And here we are. This was not a fringe practice, but the foundation stone of Persian royal power. The great kings of Persia ruled the largest empire history had ever seen, and in their most private chambers, they took their sisters and daughters as brides. For kings and nobles, endogamy was the safest way to control. Making an outsider queen meant risking treason, divided loyalties, or claims to the throne through foreign blood. But if your queen was your own sister or daughter, there was no other family to object. Consider Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great. Greek sources claimed he married his sisters, one named Roxana, the other Phmia. The accuracy of the names didn't matter. The story spread, becoming a repulsive whisper among the Greeks who saw Persians as incestuous tyrants. But for the Persians, Cambyses was not a source of shame. He was loyal to tradition, the gods, and the purity of the bloodline. The royal palace was a scene of contradictions. Publicly, adultery was condemned with the severest penalties. If a woman was caught with another man, she would be mutilated or executed. But in the same breath, priests praised incest as a path to salvation. To an outsider, it looked like hypocrisy. To the Persians, it was balance. The sacred text spoke clearly. Marriage within your family was the greatest good deed. To reject it meant inviting the devil into your soul. To accept it guaranteed your place in heaven. When the royal daughter stood before the fire altar, veiled and trembling, she was not just marrying her brother. She was binding her soul to the gods. Every movement, every touch was framed within ritual. The priest's gaze filled the room, and as the vows were spoken, her brother's hand held hers tightly, sealing not just a marriage, but a doctrine. Her eyes might be full of silent tears, but in the fire temple, those tears were considered holy. When you stepped into the chamber on the wedding night, the music and crowd were gone. Just two siblings confined between silk covers. His hands were not gentle. Your hands could not push him away. Outside, the priests awaited news that the nuptials were complete, because without it, the union was incomplete. The breath on your neck was the breath of the one you grew up with. And as his weight pressed down, you knew there was no escape. To scream was to curse the gods, to resist, to betray your father's house. This is quada. This is salvation, they said. And if you conceived, the palace would be filled with joy. Midwives would bless the child, declaring him twice pure. The king would smile, knowing his dynasty was sealed tighter than before. And when the child was born, no one would whisper the words screaming in your mind, abomination. But not everyone submitted. Stories remained of nobles who resisted, who whispered their doubts, who refused to give their daughters or sisters to the priest's desires. For those who opposed, the punishment was eternal damnation, a rebellion not just against the family, but against God. Most submitted. Silent damnation was better than being burned alive in two worlds. The Greeks used this practice for propaganda. Herodotus wrote of Persian incest with revulsion, depicting the empire as one of debauchery and monstrosity. He confirmed to his readers that the Persians were enslaved to lust and ruled by tyrants who slept with their own blood. But centuries later, the Zoroastrian texts preserved by the priests continued to praise the same unions. Even under the Sasanian dynasty, incest was debated as the highest virtue. Two worlds looked at the same act. One saw holiness, the other saw horror. Now imagine yourself as a Babylonian woman. You are under Persian rule. The city is vast, temples reach to the sky, and the law of the gods is carved into every stone. From the moment you are born, you know that one day, whether your family is rich or poor, you must submit to the same ritual. It is called sacred prostitution. Herodotus recounted it in brutal detail. Every Babylonian woman, at least once in her life, had to walk to the great temple of Ishtar, known as Mutilated to the Persians, and offer her body to a stranger. Not for love, not by choice. You enter the temple grounds, along with hundreds of women, some in fine dresses adorned with jewels, some poor, in tattered clothes. But it doesn't matter. In the shadow of the goddess, all women are equal. All must be touched by a foreigner. You wait. The courtyard is full of men, merchants, soldiers, watching like wolves. Women are chosen one by one. A man steps forward, throws a coin into her lap. Any coin. Harem sounds like an exotic, soft word in distant lands. But when you step inside, you realize it is a cage draped in terror. The room smells of incense and perfume, but beneath it is sweat, fear, and stale tears. Hundreds of women, concubines, wives, slaves, lives stacked like a treasure in a vault. Guards push you further inside. The women whisper in dozens of languages: Persian, Median, Babylonian, Greek, Scythian. When night falls, the game begins. The women tremble, awaiting the moment they will be called to the king's chamber. A knock at the door will either open the way to a life of privilege or bring an early end. Those chosen are prepared like gifts to be presented, washed, adorned, clothed, and their identities completely erased. Only their bodies remain. Some return with jewels and smiles. Others are broken, enveloped in silence. But the harem is not just about sexuality. It is a battleground in its own right. Every concubine plots. Every wife poisons her rivals with sweet whispers. You hear stories whispered in the dark. Women strangling newborns, fearing their rival sons will endanger their own children's path to the throne. Poisons concealed in goblets at feasts, carrying death behind smiling faces. Survival here depends not on beauty, but on cunning, ruthlessness, and obedience. If you fail in one, you perish. Sometimes women are executed silently. Sometimes they are publicly disgraced, stripped, beaten, humiliated before the court. The walls of the harem are not velvet, but iron. And the king? From the outside, he is the most powerful man, a godlike figure among mortals. But here, he is just a shadow. He enters, takes what he wants, and disappears. He doesn't see you. He doesn't know your name. You remember your home in Greece, where men would boast of Persian debauchery. But the truth is seen here. This is not pleasure. It is power. The king does not sleep with women only for desire. He sleeps with them to remind the women and the world that they belong to him. One night your door is knocked. A eunuch enters, his face expressionless, unreadable. He says you have been chosen in a voice devoid of any emotion. Your heart stops. You are led down a corridor lit by oil lamps. Every step echoes like a drum in your head. The eunuch pushes you into a room filled with incense. The bed is vast, adorned with gold and red. The weight of unseen eyes is upon you. But only the king is in the room. When the door closes, you realize that the harem is not just a prison. Every breath, every glance, every word is the key to survival or annihilation. If women are confined to a gold-plated cage, the world reserved for men is much more brutal. Their bodies are mutilated to serve the empire. Women were not the only ones who fell into the trap. Men were also taken, mutilated, and transformed into silent, controlling creatures. You're only 12 years old when the soldiers arrive. They call it the tax. Your village is forced to hand over its best sons to the empire. The reason they choose you is not because you are weak. You are strong, healthy, handsome, and perfect for service in the palace. You don't yet understand what your service is. In silence, you walk with the other children across the desert, toward the brilliant heart of Persia. At first, you are proud. Perhaps you will stand beside the great king. But whispers reach you. Cut, mutilate, take away his manhood. You don't want to believe it. Until the night, it becomes reality. The room is cold. The stone floor slippery with the blood of those who came before. They lay you on the ground. You scream as they undress you. Your voice cracks with fear. The knife gleams. A white fire pierces your body, a pain so profound you choke. You pass out with the screams of the other children. When you wake up, something you cannot name is missing. It has been taken forever. You are no longer a child, but you are not a man either. You are a eunuch. The wound doesn't heal for weeks. Some of your friends die from infection. Their bodies are thrown out like garbage. You survive, but you feel an emptiness. Not just your body, but your future has been carved out. You soon learn your new role. Eunuchs are the lifeblood of the palace. The women in the harem are now under your supervision. The king trusts you because you are no longer a threat, but you are still dangerous, just in a different way. You quickly learn that the harem is a nest of poison. Women whisper venom in your ear, beg for favors, offer bribes with gold, even press their bodies against you as if mocking what you've lost. You cannot take what is offered, but you can control who lives and who dies. So you begin to use your mutilation as a weapon. Your loyalty is demanded, but your power grows. Eunuchs become confidants, spies, kingmakers. They have no attached families, no legacy to leave through heirs. They are the perfect servants of the empire. Years pass. The pain subsides but never disappears. You no longer weep for what was taken. Instead, you sharpen your mind, bending words like daggers. You rise through the ranks. You are no longer a boy. You are a shadow beside the king, privy to secrets that could topple dynasties. One evening, you are summoned to the royal chamber. The king looks at you, not with contempt, but with trust. He approaches, whispers orders into your ear, orders that will determine the fate of princes, generals, entire kingdoms. You bow. You feel the weight of power. There is one truth that no Persian king can admit. Eunuchs are the greatest danger to the empire. They move unseen, unchallenged, untouched, and they never forget the pain that created them. But the debauchery and cruelty of the empire did not end only in the palace chambers. Behind the gold-plated walls, sexuality turned into a show of force. Feasts merged into orgies. Punishments turned the body into a scene of shame. While the eunuchs whispered in the shadows, the court openly declared its power. Feasts became performances, and punishments turned the body into a stage. You are reclining on a couch covered with ivory and gold. Your body heavy with wine, your senses clouded by the smoke of incense. The hall is brightly lit, bronze goblets, jewel-encrusted plates, roasted meats dripping their oils on his silver trays. The king is at the center, surrounded by lords and generals. The drinking never stops. But the real intoxication here is not wine, but bodies. Musicians keep the rhythm. Painted boys dance before the court, translucent garments revealing the contours of their bodies. They were taken as slaves at a young age, taught to move with grace, their innocence sold for entertainment. Their eyes are vacant, their smiles masked. As the nobles draw them closer, their hands slide to their hips. The feast is like a prelude to something darker. Then the women arrive. Concubines dressed in silks, so sheer they are almost naked. They turn, laugh, sway their hips, their beauty presented like a gift. Some are chosen to serve wine. They bend low from the waist, the nobles reaching their hands beyond the goblets. The king watches. The line between feast and orgy blurs. The heat of the room rises. Lust, power, insatiability. By midnight, the couches are no longer just for reclining. They have become a bed, a stage, a flesh-and-blood altar. The entertainment that began as a feast turns into a theater where bodies are staged. The world's largest empire demonstrates its power not just in conquest, but in consumption. But the same hall, indulging in excess, also presents cruelty. The music stops, the air changes. Soldiers drag in a woman, her wrists bound, her hair dirty. The charge is adultery. Her husband, a high-ranking man, stands among the courtiers, his face cold as stone. The king demands punishment. The woman is stripped naked in public. Her body trembles under hundreds of hungry eyes. Laughter erupts. The silence is broken. She is forced to kneel. The soldiers whip her back. The skin splits. Blood stains the marble floor. Every strike is not just pain, but shame. She does not plead for death, only for mercy. She only wants to die. The king does not grant it. Instead, the woman is displayed in the hall, naked and broken. It is a warning to every woman watching. Here, adultery is not just a crime. It is a spectacle. Her pain is entertainment. Reclining on the couch, you realize that in Persia, sexuality is never private. It is ritual, punishment, the public display of power. The same act can enrich a concubine or destroy another in public shame. At dawn, the feast ends. The hall smells of wine, sweat, blood, and tears. The king withdraws. The nobles are exhausted, their mouths stained red with both pomegranate and sin. And you can never forget what you saw. The laughter of the male dancers, the screams of the punished woman, a mixture of pleasure and brutality. You can no longer distinguish between them. Because in the heart of Persia, your body no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the empire, to be used, broken, and discarded. When the wine dries and the wounds heal, when the whispers are silenced, the Persian Empire stands as both a symbol of purity and a pit of insatiability. The palace falls silent as the torches burn low. You walk alone through corridors filled with incense and secrets. Your steps echo on walls that have witnessed every excess and atrocity. Behind those walls are indelible memories. A princess forced into her brother's arms in the name of purity, a woman trembling in a temple, her body marketed as a sacred gift, a Greek girl imprisoned in a golden cage, her freedom exchanged for silk and fear, a boy carved out for obedience, a man screaming in a blood-smelling room, a feast flowing with wine and consumed bodies. This is the Persia that captivated the world with its splendor. While it preached order, justice, and the sacred fire, a dark current flowed beneath the marble floors. Power was measured not only by armies or gold, but by bodies, their use, their display, their breaking, and their disposal. And this contradiction is what makes it unforgettable. The same Zoroastrian priests who preached purity, truth, and cosmic order sanctified incest in the name of the gods. The same rulers who built the world's most beautiful palaces filled them with women as captives in luxury. The same kings who demanded loyalty and allegiance mutilated men to guarantee obedience. Every empire tells the story it wants to be remembered by. The Persians wished to be remembered as chosen by the gods, protectors of the sacred fire. But when you peel back the gold leaf, you see the rot. This empire was built as much on ambition, fear, and shame as it was on glory and conquest. Close your eyes, and you can still hear it. The clinking of a goblet, the whisper of silk slipping from shoulder, the crack of a whip on flesh, the choked sobs of one who knows they can never be free. These are not carved into stone, not embossed on reliefs, but they are real. They live in the silence that history refuses to speak. And perhaps this is the most terrifying truth. Empires do not die when their armies are defeated or their palaces crumble. They die when their sins are remembered. The darkness they tried to hide becomes the only story that remains. So when you think of the Persians, don't just imagine their gardens, their temples, their gold-crowned kings. Think of the women and children who paid the price for that grandeur. Because they were the true foundation of the empire, its silenced victims, its forgotten voices. And perhaps, just perhaps, those voices are still whispering in the ruins today.